Hey everybody, welcome to our Sessionable Saturdays. I'm Greg Avola, founder of Untapped. It's the first day of summer. Get excited. I know my shirt screams of summer, hopefully with the amazingness that I'm wearing right now. But we've got a special guest to invite onto the stage right here, Steven Pauwels, who is the Brewmaster at Boulevard Brewing Co. Steven, thank you so much for joining the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Yeah, well,
awesome. We're excited. It's the first day of summer. It's hot out. Everyone's enjoying a nice beverage. We got a lot of stuff we want to talk about here about Boulevard, but like most important things within any drinking experience is all about what beer we are drinking. So, Steven, I'll start with you. What beer do you have on tap to drink with us this afternoon?
You know, I was very undecisive today, so I brought an Easy Sport because that's a rally ale, beer with electrolytes. Nice. I had a Tank 7. But then I looked in my fridge and I saw this one. So whoa. I think it's going to be that one. So
that sounds like for me. That's amazing. Actually, I never knew that they had some beer with electrolytes. That's a pretty interesting thing there. Is that a new thing that's come out recently? I've never heard of that before.
We've had that beer for about, I think it's year number 2.
Okay.
So it's a 99 calorie, easy drinking beer, 4.1% alcohol.
Nice.
Yeah.
Very
cool. Good after after sport and stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm drinking a little local thing here as well. For me to go to the beer can. This one is called Back East Ice Cream Man. It contains no dairy, so that's fantastic. This is a local brewery for me called Back East Brewing, which is located in Hartford area in Connecticut, where I'm located here. So if you're at home right now, you have a beverage, crack open your beverage here. We'll pour this into our glass. Reminder, obviously, to check in your beer and tag Untapped at home, which is a great venue to let people know that you're safe out there. And drinking responsibly, hopefully. And then also make sure that you tag and show a picture of where you're watching this. We'd love to be able to kind of comment and toast up with you on your particular check-in. So I did a great job today. Look at this pour. It's fantastic. It covers the glass perfectly. So look at you. Right at the top. Fantastic. I love it. All right. Well, cheers, everybody out there. Thanks for joining in and enjoy your beverage. Great beer on a hot summer day. That's for sure. So let's get right into it. Just a reminder to the audience out there that's listening in, if you have any questions that you want to ask Steven, use the comments on your platform, whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitter, or YouTube, and we'll be able to kind of filter those questions towards Steven throughout the segment here. But to kick us off here, give us a little bit of your background here with Boulevard, how you got into brewing, and what you're doing today within the brewery.
Well, I've been with Boulevard for 21 years. I started in '99. And I came from Belgium. So when I started, John McDonald, who founded the brewery 10 years before I came here, he was looking for somebody with some bottle conditioning experience, stuff like that. And so I came over and interviewed, and it was on I grew up in Belgium, and I came over, and it was on the Super Bowl weekend, and he took me to a Super Bowl party.
Oh, nice.
And like I know football, but not this kind of football.
Not American football.
Why is this ball not around? What's wrong with these people? And so it was fun. And then after a while, I really like the people here. I think these are the Midwest people are so friendly. Not that they're not friendly anywhere else, but I mean this is just really amazing. And I called my wife back home, and it's like, these guys are just too nice, and this is too good of an opportunity to let it go. So my wife and I agreed, like, okay, let's do this for 3 years, and here I am, 21 years later. I'm still here. Yeah,
there you go.
That's how it goes. It's been a fun ride. Yeah, I'm still doing the same thing. I mean, I'm the brewmaster here, so a lot of overseeing quality, production, creating new beers, making sure that quality is right. All that kind of stuff. What stuff guys like me do.
So how's your Belgian influence kind of come into the Boulevard situation? Was it always, obviously the history of Boulevard is something we want to talk about as well, but has there always been a bottle condition kind of side of Boulevard, or was your influence really the driving factor in moving it toward their in their Belgian influence beers?
No, so John started the brewery because he really fell in love with Belgian beers. So that's why he started the brewery. He was his fiance at the time, his wife now, her dad was stationed in France. So he went over to France, tasted all these beers, came back to the US like, yeah, I'm going to buy these beers. And they were all stale and oxidized and old. And it's like, I got to make them here if I want to have them fresh. So that's why he did that. And then we already bottle conditioning, but I just, get the thing going and kept it going. So we still bottle condition most of our beers today.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the most amazing things about your brewery is that it's a very unique thing that kind of separates you out from that perspective. But I think one of the most beers that people fell in love with your brewery is the Tank 7, the farmhouse ale. And that's one of the first beers I personally had from your brewery. Is there a story behind that? Because it's such a popular beer when it comes to talking about on tap check-ins and users and stuff like that. There has to be some sort of a story behind that, how that came to be.
There is. Actually, that's why this beer has something to do with it. Saison bread has a lot to do with it. So in 2006, we grew out of capacity on our brewery, and we installed a big new brew house, an 150 barrel brew house. So we had room to make smaller batches again, and we started making beers that were just in big bottles with champagne cork. I'm talking about 11 years ago.
Right.
No, 2006. That's already 14 years ago. Time flies. And one of the beers was a saison, and it wouldn't sell. Nobody would buy it. It was just not popular at all. And then I thought, like, well, if we want to make a saison, let's make one that's really earthy and get that farmhouse character at it. And that's why we made saison bread. The base beer was sitting in tank number 7, which was kind of an odd tank. It was a little different than all the other tanks. So if we did development, we would use tank number 7. And we were waiting for the bread yeast to grow up in our lab, and it was just taking forever. We didn't have any experience. 14 years ago, nobody knew what bread was. And,
Very true.
Yeah. So that beer was sitting there, and everybody was. Every time I go home, people were sitting on the patio drinking the beer from tank number 7, and it was like, this is such a great beer. And from one thing came the other, and we're like, okay, well, get rid of the saison and make tank 7, and that's the story for it. Marketing people got involved too. They're like, oh, we should call it, we should call it the Poet of the Plains or something like that. And, I'm like, no way. This is tank 7. We better stick with this, guys. Come on. Yeah.
That's a great story just because of all the things that happened to get to that place. And it's great that you kind of kept that same name of Tank 7 throughout. I know there's a lot of people out there that are watching right now that have had Tank 7. So if you had it, let us know in the comments here. We'd love to kind of put the shout outs of what your experiences with Tank 7 on the screen here. One of the things that really kind of draws me to Boulevard from a consumer perspective is we talked about it, the intent, bottle conditioning, Belgian style influences. Obviously, you coming from overseas to here, talk a little bit about the differences between kind of the Belgium versus the U.S. in terms of styles and bottle conditioning, or just in general the brewing industry, and how it's kind of transformed over the last couple of years.
Oh, yeah, I can talk about that for an hour, but we only have 30 minutes, right? So, I think in a nutshell, if you're a Belgian brewer, if you look at the ingredients, number 1 is yeast. They're really, there's a saying in Belgium that a Belgian brewer, it's easier for a Belgian brewer to find a new wife than find a new yeast. They're really tied to their yeast. Then probably water, malt, and last thing on their mind is hops. You come to the US, first thing on American brewers' mind is hops.
Hops, yeah.
Absolutely. And then water, and then malt, and then you need yeast just to make alcohol, right? I mean, I'm really simplifying it here, but that's the difference, really. And I have to say, when I left Belgium in '99, and I would go back to Belgium, and brewers were like, "What's wrong with you? What are you thinking?" And in the US, people were like, "Oh, this guy is a Belgian brewer." Now here in the US, they're like, "Oh, he's just a Belgian brewer." I go back to Belgium, and they're like, "Wow, you made the right move because things are so crazy and cool down there. You guys are really innovative, and you just do whatever you want." And like, yep, you're exactly right. Yeah.
Interesting. From my perspective as of someone in the United States, you hit the nail on the head about the brewers and their focus on hops and everything. That's kind of a phase that we're in the brewing industry with developing beers. If you are a new brewery and you do not have an IPA or something along those lines, people start scratching their heads. And I think that it's always refreshing to see new breweries pop up that are lager focused or Pilsner focused, and trying to kind of to break that stigmata, for lack of a better word, of this kind of hop forward culture. Don't get me wrong, I'm drinking a hazy IPA right now, and I enjoy it. But I think that there are a lot of opportunities to explore these different styles and really kind of put that on the forefront of consumers' tastes. And I think Boulevard's done a great job with that in terms of not conforming to the always the IPA and talking about saisons and pushing those boundaries there. It's definitely innovative in that aspect when it comes to brewing.
Yeah, you can only go that far, I think. And at one point, you just have to admit, if you don't make an IPA, You're right.
You're not
People
going
are
to make
going to say
sales.
like, are you a little bit? And there's something wrong there with you because you have to make an IPA. And it's funny, there's some of these newer breweries are thinking about a couple here that started like, oh, we're only going to make lagers. No, we're just going to be Belgian focused only.
Right.
In the end, their most popular beer is a hazy IPA. It's just what it is. You have to make what the consumer wants.
Exactly. I think that's an interesting point about the brewing industry is right now is that, it's a consumer driven, company. I mean, you make products for people, and you can definitely make a bunch of Belgian Saison ales and people are going to love them, but the general public are going to always want to carry it on to the IPA and things of that nature. So it's very important. But I do appreciate the breweries that experiment and try the different styles and not just do the standard IPA. So it's a refreshing taste. We had our virtual festival last week where we sampled some beers in different categories, pilsners, lagers. And as a person who's a hophead, that I guess all Americans that are into beer traditionally may be in hophead from that perspective. It's refreshing. It's something different. I think that's what got me started into craft beer as a whole, is trying different things and experimenting and enjoying those flavors and seeing you guys on your side pushing those boundaries too is really exciting from that perspective.
Yeah. I think there's hope, because we just made a small collaboration with the people from Bierstadt in Denver, the Bierstadt Lager House, and they only make lagers. So we thought, okay, we're going to make this pretty small. We're going to put it out in cans, and it sold in 2 days. It was crazy.
That's awesome.
It was amazing. And, they make such fantastic beers. I learned a lot from them, and it was really eye-opening. And like, yes, there's hope for lagers again. Yes.
Speaking of collaborations, obviously we talked a little bit about that collaboration with there. You guys do a lot of collaboration with a lot of different breweries. Is there one that stands out in your mind as something that you guys are really proud of? Obviously you're proud of a lot of beers that you guys do, but one that kind of sticks out from a perspective of, this is an amazing collaboration, an amazing end result?
Oh, we've done, I mean, some are hit and miss. I go back to the first one that we made. That was with Jean-Marie Rock from Orval. And we were making Saison bread at the time already, and everybody like, okay, here's gonna be a crazy bread beer, right? Okay, here it is. And we start talking, and he's like, so Jean-Marie, what do you want to make? He's like, I want to make a Pilsner. I'm like, oh no, here we go. Dude, this is not gonna work. But we made a Pilsner, and it was just a beautiful beer. Just Pilsner malt, sauce hops, lager yeast, and the water, and that was it. And just make a very, very simple beer. And that was at the time that everybody was throwing anything. I mean, if a beer wasn't barrel aged with coffee and the stuff, nobody would look at it. So we were going counter stream with that one. So that one really sticks out. Here recently, we've done some with the guys from Side Project. Corey is such a fantastic guy. Weltworks, we love those guys. They're great guys, beautiful beers. We've had a couple in the pipeline too. It's always fun working with brewers. My goal is always like, it's got to be win-win. We both have to learn something, and it's always eye-opening when you work with other brewers.
I think for people that may not know a lot about collaborations from new people that are into beer, it's a very unique aspect, in my opinion, toward the brewing industry. You don't see things like Pepsi and Coke coming together and making a soft drink together. It's not ever going to happen. But within the brewing industry, what is your kind of take on collaborations as a whole? I mean, there are a lot of breweries that focus exclusively on collaborations. They make more collaborations than the regular beers. What's your take on the kind of collaboration craze in terms of a lot of breweries coming together and making good beer? In my perspective, from the consumer side, I always look at it as like, you got two people that love a great product and they want to come together and put their minds together to make something. But what's your kind of vision on what you think collaborations look like in the future for beer?
I think in the end, I mean, again, we're a consumer-driven business here. We gotta, we have to look at the consumer, so we have to come up with new stuff all the time. And at one point, it's really, really good when you work with a collaboration. In the end, collaborations take a lot more work than just making your regular beers. Maybe I'm old school, maybe I'm old-fashioned. I would love to do more brand building and build our own brands if we could. But that's tough. That's really so. I think the collaborations there for us, they're like, we sprinkle them in here and there, and they make us, they make it fun for us, and it's always great to work with other brewers. But to be focused 100% on collaborations, it's a lot of energy, and it takes a lot of time.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't have that much time. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, if you join us today, we're talking to Steven Pauwels. I got it right this time, so we'll put it that way. From Boulevard Brewing Company. If you have questions for Steven about Boulevard or his brewing process, make sure to go to the chat and your platform and ask them, and we'll be able to answer them for you. I want to turn to some shout outs that we're seeing in the chat right now. This one's from Chris. He had a thumbs up, and he says, one of the first American-made Belgian-style beers I had. It continues to hold a special place in my palate along Allagash and Ommegang. So thank you so much, Chris. We really appreciate you writing in here about some of the beers from Boulevard here. Another one from Kevin. Kevin says, Tank 7 has a lot going on. I think of it as a Belgian pale. That's a very interesting point there. You know, from my perspective, I always thought it as a Saison. But yeah, I guess you could kind of categorize it maybe as a Belgian pale. What do you say to that, Steven?
You know, that's a really good point. Kevin, you make a great point there, because when we made this beer the first time, we were really on the fence. Should we call this a Belgian IPA or should we call it a farmhouse? Because it is pretty hoppy. It's you know, we put a lot of Amarillo in it. We use some Citra in that too, and it's super. It can be super hoppy in some stages, but I'm glad that we didn't call it a Belgian IPA, because IPA is just. I mean, if you don't use 3 to 4 pounds per barrel of dry hopping, you're not going to get anywhere anymore. So I'm glad that we didn't call it that way. But I think, you know, we call it the Saison nowadays, or the farmhouse ale. It's a beer in its own, and that's what I like about it. We did not expect it to be that popular, for sure.
Sometimes these things kind of fall into place, and I'm glad it did. You know, we're going to put Kevin back up on the screen here. He has a great question that we didn't talk about early, and he said, what's the advantage of doing bottle conditioned beer? I think for people who are just starting out in kind of this area here, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on the differences between a bottle conditioned beer versus just a regular beer in a bottle.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think for us, the reason why we did it, where we did bottle conditioning in the early years of the brewery, is because our bottle conditioning equipment was completely crap. You know, we had a lot of oxygen pickup, and basically what happens is the yeast will pick up any oxygen and grow, and you basically create a complete anaerobic environment. So your beer, you don't have any oxidation process going on in your beer. I think that with bottle conditioning, you basically extend the life of your beer with about a month to 2 months, depending on how much hop you use in it. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, you can make, with bottle conditioning, you can make a beer really nice and effervescent. You can create a very nice foamy head, and because you're always limited how much CO2 you can get in a bottle without bottle conditioning. So I mean, the same process as champagne, really. You know, champagne, they get to about 7 volumes of CO2 or 14 grams per liter. We go to about 9 grams in some of our beers. So we can make a beer really nice and effervescent. And I think that's one of the things, to me as a brewer, is that carbonation is part of the total experience when drinking a beer. And it's not a lot of people really pay attention to it. I think now with some of the the barrel-aged imperial stouts, people go now to a lot of softer, lower carbonation levels, same with some of the IPAs. And I like that distinction. You know, we do the same thing. Some of our imperial stouts, especially barrel aged and very soft, and we try to make carbonation really low. On the other hand, I like a quad or a triple to be super carbonated. I like that distinction, and it's one of the flavor aspects that you can play with.
Yeah, I think it's very interesting, just flipping to more cask ales from that perspective. You ever been over to London, for example, or even the United States has some cask ales. The low carbonation there helps significantly. For a person like me, who actually I don't like carbonation. It's a very strange thing from my perspective. I don't like hard seltzer or bubbly water or root beer. That stuff makes my nose go crazy. But for me, I love bottle because it's a lower carbonation and it's easier to drink from my perspective. But you get a lot more effervescence flavors when you open that up for the first time. And you can let that bottle sit for a long time. Like you mentioned, they can be on the shelf for a little while or even in your cellar. So there's obviously a benefit to keeping it in there for sure. And it's a pretty interesting concept in a lot of brewers too.
Absolutely. And I have to say, you have to somewhat stay true to what you do. Like I had a cask. From a cask. I had a Saison from a cask. At one point, I'm like, okay, this is about the worst beer I've ever had in my life. If you think about a Saison, what is a Saison? I don't know, but somebody's got to explain it to me at one point. But the only thing I know, it's got to be effervescent. And if you take that away, what's left?
Exactly. I totally agree. Well, let's shift gears a little bit here. We have a new game we've been playing on our virtual happy hours and Sessionable Saturdays. We call it Quick Beer Bytes. And basically, we ask our guests 5 or 6 questions in 90 seconds and get their lightning responses for what they think about these things. And we want you guys to play at home as well. So if you are watching as well, use the comments right now on your chat of your platform to answer what you guys think on the questions here. So, Steven, are you ready, my friend? You're on the hot seat here.
Whew, bring it on. Come on.
All right, let's go. First question here. What is your favorite beer not brewed by your own brewery?
Two Hearted.
Two Hearted, great beer. What's your favorite beer? What's your favorite beer outside your? We'll skip that question. Actually, favorite hobby interest outside of beer brewing?
Tennis.
I love tennis. I'm a huge tennis fan. All right, fantastic. All right, favorite place to visit outside of your hometown?
Anywhere in Europe.
give us an area. Give us specific.
I'll go to Belgium. Why not?
There you go.
I'm from there. Yeah.
Awesome. And last question here: upcoming trend that is here to stay in the brewing industry that's already been happening now.
Lagers. I'm believing in new lager. Let's do it.
Awesome. Very cool. Well, thank you so much for those. I think the interesting part that we've heard from a lot of people as well is as a hard seltzers is one thing that we're seeing a lot now in the area. I don't see hard seltzers fitting into the Boulevard brand, but I'd love to hear your particular interest in the hard seltzer avenue when it comes to beer, because we've heard many stories from many different people about how it's too hot to pass up. I want to hear your take on what you think about that.
We make them. There you go. We started making them. We started making them about a month ago. It took us a while to get everything ready and everything lined up. And we didn't know what to expect, and then we started making them, and they were sold out in a week. And now we're scrambling to make more. I think it's gonna be big for us because we have a good reputation, we have a good brand, and we're only selling them in the area. I would say like the Midwest. We're not gonna try to compete with some of the other producers that are out there. I think but one thing that the name of the brand is Quirk, Quirk, and we take it a little quirky. We look at it a little differently. We add a little bit of juice to it, so it's got a little bit more of a, I would say flavor, but it's a little more body. It's not just sparkling water with alcohol and a flavor to it. So there's more to it, and also we like to play with the combination of fruit and herb. So we have a strawberry lemon with basil. We have a blackberry and sage, and then we have one that's pear yuzu. So a kind of interesting flavors, kind of a little quirky. They're low in calories, 90 calories, 4.2 ABV. But we try to make them interesting. We gotta differentiate somehow, and we are innovative, and we always will stay innovative and come up with new things. So they're kind of fun to work with.
Yeah, and that's probably why I never heard of it before, because you guys are more on the Midwest side, and I haven't seen them. Are they branded under the Boulevard brand, or they're a separate kind of brewery, for lack of a better word, when it comes to the marketing aspect of the beer?
Well, we started a kind of a sidekick called Boulevard Beverage Company. Okay. We started that 2 years ago, and we started with ready-to-drink cocktails, actually.
Oh, nice.
So Fling, and we have a couple. We have about 6 in those, a blood orange vodka, and then all the way to a whiskey mule. So there's got a whole bunch of different in that category, and they've been really they've been doing really well too for us. So. Yeah. So
obviously you're believing in the hard seltzer craze. It's not going away anytime soon. It's something that you guys feel that is something that the consumers are walking. We talked about this in the beginning of the show about where as breweries and industry people, you make products for consumers. And you're obviously seeing a big trend in that area toward the hard seltzers. And you're obviously not the first brewery to do this, but you've always taken your time to kind of make it unique in its own way. What was the turning point for you guys to decide to go down this path? Was it more data from the consumer side? Was you seeing the landscape, or what was the kind of thing like, yep, we're going to have to do this?
I think for me, personally, the turning point was I have a son and a daughter, and my son lives in a different city. So he came to Kansas City, and then it's like, hey, I'm going to hang out with my friends. Can you just drop me off? Because I know I'm going to have a couple. It's like, yeah, great, be safe. So I pick him up, and there's all these, just out of college kids, they're all 24, 25. And I'm looking around, and all I see on the table were hard seltzers. And I'm like, okay, dude, you got to get on this wagon because you're going to lose the consumer otherwise.
Right.
And there was one keg, and I'm not going to tell you what keg it was because it was the Boulevard beer, and it was, it was a light beer that they were drinking, but everything was low calorie. And I'm like, this is insane. Here we are, brewers. We don't care about calories. We just want, a beer that tastes amazing and just enjoy it and drink one or two. No, these kids were like, yeah, we want to have low calories, and they were doing tastings of all these seltzers. And I'm like, okay, I gotta go back and go to the drawing board and come up with some good stuff here.
Interesting. A tasting of seltzers. Never heard of that before, but I guess it has been done. I think one of the things we always look at from the consumer side on Untappd is seeing the data coming in about seltzers. And we saw a huge jump from 2019 to where we are today, even with, COVID and everything that's happening on the situation. The huge jump from 2018, 2019, and even in 2020, that is a long period of time that is going on. So people say, oh, is it a fad? Is it going to go away? I think as more breweries kind of adopt this and more opportunities are made, I don't really see this going away. I think a lot of it has to do too with younger drinkers getting into this particular situation, but also it is a difference to a cider. So if you have celiac, for example, you can have hard seltzer, and that's kind of something that has jumped into it. And I think that the majority thing we talked on Thursday with another panelist, Brian Roth, is like people drink seltzers already in their regular life. That's what they do on a regular situation. And now you're mixing in an alcoholic part to that seltzer, and it tastes like a seltzer. You're going to enjoy that, obviously, if you're big into seltzer. So it's really interesting to me to see your particular brewery as a whole kind of going outside and doing different flavors and different kind of quirkiness, as you mentioned, on the things of the flavors. Because Polar, I know, partnered with Harpoon to do their version of the seltzer, hard seltzer. But giving a different perspective of it is interesting. But like I said, I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. As summer approaches, as today is the first day of summer, I can see a lot of these seltzers being in people's hands at the beach and things like that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I was talking to our sales director, and he told me that seltzers are now bigger than craft beers in total.
That's crazy.
That just puts it in perspective, the volume that is. And if you're a brewer and you're not jumping on that wagon, my hat off to you, because that means that you're sticking to your guns. But I always feel there's about 200 employees working at Boulevard. I feel like it's our responsibility to, whatever goes on in the world, whatever the consumer wants, we have to get at least a shot at it, because we want to stay in business, and I want to keep everybody be able to feed their family, and
that's
our responsibility.
I just think it's something that's not a fad. Like I mentioned, I think a lot of people are thinking that they're going to have to hold out, but it's definitely here to stay from that perspective. We have one more last shout out here we want to go before we wrap up here. This one's from Mark, and Mark said, I enjoyed my first Tank 7 at Old Chicago in Colorado Springs back in 2014. It went quite well with a spicy pizza. Thank you very much, Mark. We appreciate that. And that definitely would go well with a nice spicy pizza. So appreciate it.
Yeah, I think so. Tank 7, sorry to interrupt you, but Tank 7 has always been, for us, the beer when we do food pairings. When we work at a restaurant, Tank 7 is always the beer that fills the hole. It pairs well with about everything and every food. So it's great.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Steven, thank you so much for being part of the show. We had a lot of fun talking about all the things going on with Boulevard, especially bottle fishing beer. And as we tend to go with most of these conversations about hard seltzer, and I don't imagine I'll stop asking brewers about this as we move into the new year here and the rest of this one. But I want to give you a chance to kind of let people know where they can find you or find the brewery, or where they can find the beer for Boulevard. More information about that.
Well, we're in Kansas City. So if I think we're the number 2 tourist attraction in Kansas City. So if you come to Kansas City, you can't miss it unless you just go to the Chiefs or they're on our plane, or the or the baseball, I guess, the Royals. But yeah, we're here. We're in downtown Kansas City. You can't miss us. Come see us. We have a big beer hall. We always have new beers, new developments that we test beers. We always have them on tap. They might not make it to the market. Our distribution network is pretty wide, so you probably can find our beer. I think we're in about 38 or 40 states right now. We actually export all the way to China and some other parts. We're also in Europe because we're part of the Duvel Moorcat, Duvel Moorcat. So yeah, if you're in China and you want to have an American beer, you can find Tank 7 most likely. If you're in Belgium and you want to have Tank 7, that's possible too. So, but yeah, we're about you will find our beers quite everywhere almost.
Cool. Well, thank you so much, Steven. Really appreciate it, and thanks for being part of our Sessionable Saturdays. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining in for our Sessionable Saturday today. I want to give you a little update on what's happening coming soon to our next session. So we're going to have a little bit of change of plans in terms of when our next virtual happy hour is happening. We're moving into Tuesday next week, and that's going to be Carla Lauter. She's a beer writer and journalist from Maine today. It's a special Tuesday version of the virtual happy hour, so make sure to head to untap.tv to see all the updates there and get notifications when you are there. And then the following Saturday, I'm really excited about this as well. We're bringing on Sean Lawson, who is the founder of Lawson's Finest Liquids. Talk a little bit about Sip of Sunshine, all the things going on with there, up Vermont, more hazy IPA discussion, more amazingness. So really appreciate it from that perspective. If you have any feedback for us, any guests you want to see on the show, head over to emailing us at media@untap.com. We'd love to hear from you. And also, if you are interested in looking through our audio version of these particular videos, we have you covered. We're on podcasts on all your favorite podcast providers, Apple, Google, you name it. You can also view it on untap.tv as well. And we'd love to have you hear the audio in case you don't want to look at my face for the 35 minutes, which is totally acceptable. We appreciate it. Thank you so much for watching this afternoon, and we enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And cheers, everybody. Have a good day.